My sister-in-law tried to poison me at my husband's birthday party because I announced my pregnancy before she could announce hers. The only reason I'm alive is because her own husband accidentally ate my plate instead. And when the police arrested her, she tried to use her pregnancy to manipulate everyone into letting her go. Let me back up because you need to understand how we got here. For the last 7 years, I've been married to Tyler, and everything about our marriage has been perfect except for one thing: his sister, Victoria. She's toxic, manipulative, and genuinely one of the most negative people I've ever encountered in my life. When I first met Victoria, I actually liked her. But over time, I quickly realized who she really was. Here's the thing about Victoria: she's always believed she should control every aspect of Tyler's life, especially who he dates. Back when Tyler was 17, he dated Victoria's best friend. They eventually broke up because Tyler felt pressured into the relationship by his sister. Years later, when Tyler turned 23 and was still single, Victoria tried setting him up with another one of her friends. Tyler refused. Therefore, Victoria went crying to their parents about how she wanted him to marry someone she felt comfortable with, someone she approved of. Thankfully, his parents barely listened to her complaints. While Tyler and I were dating and falling in love, his parents were incredibly supportive. But Victoria? She treated me like I was the enemy from day one. She would constantly bring up Tyler's exes for absolutely no reason whenever I was around. She'd remind him how well they were doing, suggest he should reach out to them. This went on for months. Tyler also found it strange and would ask her to stop. I wasn't the only one who noticed how weird it was. Therefore, Victoria would get furious and start mocking me, saying I was jealous and that Tyler shouldn't be with someone like me. She would deliberately invite one of Tyler's exes whenever his parents called us for dinner, claiming she'd accidentally run into them that day and had to politely invite them. She doesn't follow me on Instagram, but she stalks my public account constantly. I've noticed she's usually the first person to view my stories. If a man comments on my photo, she'd immediately go to Tyler and complain about how I was posting inappropriate pictures of myself. Tyler and I would actually laugh at her accusations because they were so ridiculous. When Tyler and I decided to move in together, Victoria tried convincing him to break up with me. She told him I had too many flaws as a woman and that she could find someone far better for him. Since I'd been nothing but kind to her all along, that comment really hurt. Sadly, Victoria's treatment of me got even worse once Tyler and I got engaged. Everyone started congratulating us when we announced our engagement at a family gathering. But I noticed Victoria was strangely quiet. Then she suddenly jumped up from her chair and left without saying a word. Later that night, she called Tyler sobbing and screaming about how she didn't appreciate hearing the news with everyone else. She felt she was closest to him and deserved to be the first to know about his engagement. Then she messaged me with what was borderline a threat, warning me about how I should treat her brother since she'd always been the only woman in his life. The message was so bizarre, I just left it on read, which I know must have made her even angrier. Every time Victoria saw me after that, she started progressively ignoring me. Therefore, she stayed involved in all the wedding preparations, dress shopping, bridal shower, everything, even though both my future mother-in-law and Tyler called her out on it multiple times. Her criticism of the wedding reached a whole new level as she openly expressed her unhappiness with every decision I made. One day, Victoria overheard me talking with my future mother-in-law about centerpieces. She immediately started mocking me, saying my choices had no class, and this was exactly why she wanted her brother to marry someone better. That was my breaking point. I lost it. I yelled at her that I couldn't stand her constant criticism anymore and made it clear she was no longer invited to our wedding. Victoria was shocked, gasping like she never expected me to stand up to her. Even my mother-in-law backed me up. Later, Victoria called Tyler complaining about how I'd embarrassed her, insisting he should control me since I'd be his wife. But Tyler firmly told her he supported my decision and she wouldn't be invited unless she apologized. She grudgingly sent me what seemed like a sincere apology. I saw it, and once again left it on read. I was exhausted from wedding planning and wanted nothing to do with her drama. She did attend our wedding in the end because I didn't want her criticizing us afterward. Everyone followed the pink and pastel dress code I'd chosen. Everyone except Victoria. She showed up in a black floor-length gown with a veil, like she was attending a funeral. We were stunned. She went around telling everyone she was mourning the loss of her brother to another woman. Tyler confronted her about it at the reception. She claimed she had the right to wear whatever she wanted, and that I was too controlling. When her nonstop scene-making continued, my mother-in-law and father-in-law finally ordered her to leave. It was humiliating. Ever since that day, I avoided her completely. When I gave birth to our son Charlie, I forbade Victoria from being anywhere near him. She tried to oppose it, but my husband's parents supported my decision. They knew exactly why I wanted her far from my baby. 2 years ago, Victoria suffered a miscarriage with her boyfriend Mason. It completely devastated her. For everyone, it was truly a heartbreaking time. Therefore, given we already had a child, Tyler and I felt bad for her. We decided to be more lenient after her miscarriage. We'd let her visit our house so she could connect with Charlie despite her behavior toward me. She was actually really sweet with our son, which was shocking. At first, she seemed to have changed, but over time, she went back to her old self. She constantly talked about how difficult her life was, how nothing ever went right for her, always blaming ex-friends or bosses for ruining her life. I realized she never thought she was wrong about anything. She always played the victim card, trying to get people on her side, and rarely acknowledged her own flaws in any situation. This year, Victoria decided to get married and invited everyone except us. When we asked her about it, she explained she wouldn't let me come because I'd cause a disturbance at her wedding. I was confused. I'd never done anything to her. When I called to ask why she'd think that, Victoria began explaining how she deliberately dressed in all black for our wedding, so now she was worried I might do the same. That's why she wanted me banned. I told Tyler straight up how manipulative she was being. After discussing it with his parents, Tyler decided to let Victoria know they wouldn't be attending her wedding or paying for it. Therefore, Victoria broke down in tears, blaming me for starting this whole disaster. Her fiancé, Mason, told her she had no right pointing fingers at me since she'd openly admitted her own mistake. Victoria tried excusing her behavior by saying I should just get over it since our wedding was years ago. Later, she called me to apologize and beg for forgiveness because her in-laws still weren't paying for the wedding. I hate to admit it, but Victoria can be incredibly charming and convincing when she wants something. I wanted to move forward, so I forgave her. Her wedding to Mason went perfectly. We all attended and had a good time. Not even 6 months later, Victoria showed up at our door complaining about her marriage failing. Tyler and I let her stay with us for a few days. She'd spend endless hours venting about Mason. They were apparently struggling to conceive, and Victoria was obviously blaming Mason for everything. When I tried talking to Victoria, she insisted it was entirely her husband's fault. When she wasn't complaining about Mason, she'd hyper-focus on our lives and try creating problems that didn't exist. For example, I usually go to the gym every morning before work. When I'm running late, I sometimes grab my work clothes so I can finish my workout, shower, and change into my business clothes there. Victoria noticed this and had tons of questions. Why was I showering there? Why did I even need to go to the gym? I didn't think much of it and told her I liked maintaining my weight and didn't want to show up at the office all sweaty. She'd nod, but something felt off. One day at lunch, my mother-in-law was telling us about a friend who was divorcing and leaving her cheating husband with half his assets. Victoria interrupted abruptly to ask Tyler if he and I had signed a prenup before getting married. We all stopped eating and stared at her. She looked at Tyler expectantly, like I wasn't even there. Tyler told her bluntly that since we both made good money, we felt no need for a prenup. Victoria snorted and started saying Tyler could be blindsided any day, that cheaters were everywhere nowadays. Her comments offended me, so I asked her to clarify exactly what she meant. Therefore, Victoria began saying how I was obviously seeing someone since I was always carrying a change of clothes, and that as Tyler's sister, it was her duty to warn her brother. I was shocked by these accusations. My in-laws immediately stepped in, telling her she shouldn't interfere in other people's affairs without proof. But Victoria kept emphasizing how she was only trying to be there for her brother. Then she started joking about whether our son Charlie was actually Tyler's son since he didn't quite look like him. I swear I'd never seen Tyler that angry in my entire life. His face turned red with rage. Looking Victoria square in the eye, he told her she didn't deserve to be a mother yet, that her miscarried child was better off in heaven than with someone like her. Victoria's mouth hung open in stunned disbelief. My in-laws just watched silently as Tyler unleashed years of frustration. He told her she was shameless, trying to ruin everything because her own life had nothing to offer. She was just a loser doing nothing all day, while her husband worked nonstop. He said since she was clearly projecting, she should focus on her own marriage instead of pointing fingers at me and asking about prenups. Reduced to tears, Victoria began wailing. She turned to Mason for comfort, but he never spoke. Eventually, she got up and ran to the bathroom. Tyler was still fuming. I squeezed his hand while my mother-in-law tried calming him down. He apologized to everyone for losing his temper, but completely ignored Victoria. That day after lunch, we went back to having no contact with Victoria. Her behavior was affecting Tyler just as much as me. We simply blocked her from everything. My in-laws talked with us and agreed Victoria had gone too far. They could see how their usually calm son had exploded after Victoria kept pushing him. We hadn't spoken to her in a year, and everything had been running smoothly. 2 months ago, I discovered I was pregnant. Given we weren't trying, this was completely unexpected. Tyler and I felt blessed to welcome another family member. We decided to announce it at Tyler's birthday since we were waiting for the right moment. Therefore, wanting to celebrate Tyler, my in-laws were throwing a big party in their backyard. Close friends and family were invited. Victoria chose to show up after hearing about it from others. When we saw her, Tyler and I were shocked. She came over to hug Tyler, telling him how much she'd missed him and how sorry she was about their last conversation. Taking my hand, Tyler told his sister she needed to apologize to me since she'd questioned my character. Victoria nodded, looked at me, and apologized. She told me she'd been attending therapy for the past few months and realized how inappropriate it was for her to treat me that way. Though I didn't believe everything she said, I nodded because I wanted to be polite in front of everyone. This was Tyler's celebration. My in-laws checked with us, saying if we felt uncomfortable they'd kick her out since they had no idea she'd be coming. But Tyler insisted on not making a scene, so we decided to let it go. Throughout the party, Victoria seemed oddly cheerful, laughing and socializing with everyone. She mentioned seeing a therapist, so I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, even though she seemed overly optimistic, completely unlike her usual nature. When it came time to cut the cake, Tyler spoke beautifully about how he felt like the luckiest man on earth, grateful for another year with a woman like me. His words made me blush with joy. I couldn't help but appreciate that my husband and I were still deeply in love after all these years. Then Tyler and I decided to share our fantastic news. Grinning, we announced we were having a baby. Everyone paused for a moment before erupting in joy. My mother rushed to hug me and started crying. My father-in-law congratulated Tyler with tears streaming down his face. Everyone was clearly thrilled for us, eager to know if we'd chosen baby names yet. Victoria was the one sore thumb that stood out. She looked stunned. Her mood shifted and she simply turned away from us, looking irritated. I thought maybe she was processing things slowly. Though I was slightly worried she'd ruin another party, I got distracted with other people approaching to chat. I got up to help my in-laws bring out food, but they and my parents begged me to stay seated, telling me I shouldn't even be moving at this point. Victoria approached me, smiling as I sat waiting for Tyler to bring me a plate. She seemed lively, saying she personally wanted to bring me dinner since she was so excited about my pregnancy. She handed me a dish, even mentioning how she wanted to make up for all the times she'd been mean to me in the past. I nodded and thanked her politely. Then she walked away. I was about to start eating when I fortunately noticed she'd put shrimp on my plate. I'm severely allergic to shrimp, so I was surprised Victoria would bring me this. Disappointed, I shook my head and got up to get my own food. Mason approached me at that point to congratulate me on my pregnancy. After chatting briefly, he asked why I hadn't been eating. I pointed out how Victoria had served me shrimp, probably by mistake. Mason, who loved eating shrimp, reassured me not to worry and took the plate from my hands. He told me he could have it while I got a fresh plate. I nodded, smiled, and turned away. 5 minutes later, Mason started gagging and retching over his plate. Concerned, everyone stopped eating and watched him struggle to get out of his seat. Tyler and Victoria rushed toward him. Mason pointed at his plate, then at his throat. Our eyes widened as we realized something in what he'd eaten was definitely wrong. Then Mason passed out. Everyone gasped in shock and worry. Victoria rushed over to check his plate, and her eyes went wide with horror. She turned to stare at me and asked if I'd given her husband my plate. I nodded. Someone called an ambulance amid the chaos, and he was rushed to the hospital. Throughout all of this, Victoria was sobbing nonstop and staring angrily at me. We were told later that Mason had been poisoned. Knowing that plate was originally meant for me, I nearly passed out hearing this. Therefore, what Mason consumed could have poisoned both me and my baby. Tyler, my in-laws, and my parents didn't know this yet since nobody understood what was in the food that caused him to collapse. The police were called to take the food as evidence. As I'm writing this, Mason is still recovering in the hospital. Victoria stayed with him overnight. My husband and I have been fielding calls from relatives asking what happened and who could have poisoned him. My in-laws are shaken by what happened. They're sleeping over at our house because they're too scared to go back to theirs. Nobody knows why everything went wrong so suddenly when everything was going so well. Telling everyone that the plate originally belonged to me and how Victoria had personally brought it to me terrifies me. If this becomes an investigation, I'll have to tell the police the truth. Most importantly, I'm extremely worried about what my sister-in-law could do to me. I feel terrible about what happened. I don't want to be around her, and I can't bring my kids anywhere near her since she clearly has no problem trying to poison me. I feel awful about giving Mason my meal and potentially destroying my brother-in-law's life. After posting about this online, thousands of comments poured in within hours. I never imagined I'd get so many responses. I typed it with shaking hands earlier. I haven't been able to sleep. Though everyone says otherwise, I do feel somewhat responsible for what happened to Mason. I should have just thrown the plate away. I'm not sure why I let him take it from me. I keep crying thinking about his future, knowing something is seriously wrong. My husband has been staying close to me, though he doesn't know what I know about his sister. He thinks I'm just worried. I agree with comments saying I should sit down and calmly talk to everyone. My in-laws have security cameras set up all around their house. Since this birthday party took place in their backyard, I'm confident they can check and confirm through their cameras that Victoria handed me that plate. I decided to talk with everyone that night. We sat down over dinner, Tyler, my mother-in-law, and father-in-law. I told them I had something crucial to share. Taking a deep breath, the weight of the situation pressing on my shoulders, everyone gathered around. I explained the birthday party events, including how Victoria had handed me a plate of shrimp and Mason had accidentally consumed it, causing his illness. Their shock and disbelief reflected my own. My mother-in-law and father-in-law looked at each other, clearly worried. Tyler's face transformed from confusion to rage. I continued, expressing my concerns about Victoria's intentions and her past attempts to hurt me. I hesitated sharing this information, worried about the possible consequences for myself and our unborn baby. Being the practical woman she is, my mother-in-law immediately suggested checking the security camera footage. My father-in-law nodded in agreement. Tyler stayed quiet, processing the shocking revelation. Reviewing the security footage from their camera app, the truth was undeniable. The video clearly showed Victoria presenting me the poison plate and what happened afterward to cause Mason suffering. The weight of the evidence left no room for doubt. As the knowledge sank in, emotions ran strong. Now fully aware of his sister's malicious intentions, Tyler struggled to control his rage. My in-laws were horrified by their daughter's actions, shocked by the extent she'd gone to cause harm. Stunned into silence, we tried understanding why she would do something so serious. Given this is an extremely serious matter, my in-laws decided to forward this evidence to the police. Mason is the one who has to press charges against Victoria, so my father-in-law and husband plan to visit him once he recovered. I wanted to cry every time I thought about how I let Mason have my poison plate. I had no idea how he'd react. I was extremely anxious, unable to eat or sleep properly. A month passed before my next update. Victoria was arrested after seeing the proof. She admitted everything immediately and didn't even dispute the charges. She started crying. Mason was as shocked as any of us when Tyler told him what happened. My husband advised him he'd always be part of our family regardless of what he decided to do, but suggested pressing charges since this was such a wicked thing. Once Mason recovered, he not only pressed charges but also filed for divorce. Emotional and begging, Victoria called my in-laws. As it turned out, Victoria was pregnant herself. She tried manipulating them, saying they should bail her out for the sake of their grandchild. But my father-in-law firmly told her she needed to finally learn to own her actions, that they were done coddling her. Though my mother-in-law is devastated about what's happening to her daughter, she knows Victoria's actions can't simply be forgiven. The police found evidence she tampered with the food meant to harm me, which backfired and injure her husband instead. She's been charged with multiple offenses including endangering life, causing harm, and food tampering. Victoria kept pleading with Mason not to press charges, saying this was all my fault anyway. Fortunately, Mason's mind was set on holding her accountable. Her court hearing was approaching. I doubted she could escape this time. My son and I were doing okay. Charlie is clueless about what his aunt did. We want to protect our son from knowing, but Tyler and I discussed it and planned to eventually sit down with him and tell him the truth. Having that difficult but necessary conversation with a young child will be challenging. As instructed by my doctor, I'm getting frequent ultrasounds every 2 weeks for my pregnancy. We want the gender to be a surprise, so we don't plan to find out. My parents have been protective of me, knowing what happened. They're urging me to see a therapist since they're concerned this could affect my mental health during pregnancy. I agree with them because while I act normal, I have a deep-rooted fear of what Victoria did and avoid eating any outside food or anything I haven't made myself. Hopefully my husband will help me overcome this fear as he knows about it and supports me throughout. 8 months later, Victoria is in prison now. She was found guilty on all charges. Though I never attended her court hearings, my in-laws occasionally told me how Victoria confessed in court to years of jealousy toward me. She'd always dreamed of one of her best friends marrying Tyler, so when he started dating me, she constantly tried harassing me because she never wanted an outsider marrying her brother. She became jealous when we announced my pregnancy at Tyler's birthday party because she was also planning to reveal her own pregnancy that day. She'd wanted to share her wonderful news since she'd miscarried once before, but felt we stole her opportunity to shine. Therefore, she became so enraged that, mixed with pregnancy hormones, she added a little rat poison to my dinner. She claimed she only wanted me to end up in the hospital but never intended to physically hurt the baby or me. She said she deserved a reduced sentence since she never expected me to give her husband my plate, essentially saying I poisoned her spouse. Of course, the judge dismissed her arguments. She was sentenced to prison and will be far from our lives for a considerable time. Mason is finally free since she's also been divorced. We've seen him over the months and keep including him in our family events whenever we can. When we talked, he told me it was never my fault when I profusely apologized for handing him my plate. I'd been replaying it over and over in my mind, wishing I could have done things differently, so he was never poisoned. I started crying. Knowing Mason is doing well now makes me happy. Regarding Tyler and myself, our family now has a baby daughter. Our daughter's presence has brought warmth and light to our lives despite the shadows of the past still lingering. Our son Charlie is very happy being a big brother and has been loving and caring toward his little sister. Seeing our kids bond makes us appreciate everything we have. My parents and in-laws have been there for us throughout, guiding us through this new phase of our lives. Sometimes the person who claims they love your family the most is actually the one trying hardest to destroy it.